Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Mid-South Wrestling Review Series for July the 3rd, 1982. We're going to have, my goal is to have all of 82 up by Tuesday at some point, maybe even sometime today, don't really know. But the goal is by the end of the day on Tuesday. Anyway, we open with Swords and Vine versus Bar and Sharp. Um, this is a relatively simplistic tag team match. Jeff Swords and Doug Vines eventually become enhancement talents, usually throughout the South, for the next several years. Jesse Barr, of course, has been here for a while. Barr manages to get some early arm drags and the like. We then see Sharp take over for a good bit. Barr comes back in, kind of clears house a little bit, and works over the arm of his opponent, and then they basically jockey for position for the next several minutes, attempted tag, and it doesn't go exactly the way that is wanted by Sword, and then Barr comes back in, he gets cut off for a little bit, shoulder tackle and the like for him, and then the heel team, the new heel team, comes in with working over the arm of Jesse Barr, side headlock takeovers, rollback. Really good tag match for, I guess you'd say, lower mid card to mid card tag team. Nothing wrong with it per se. They get 6-7 minutes out of it, something like that. Barr with a nice suplex, body slam, and he remains in power until Sharp gets the submission via his backbreaker hold, and there's a win for the team. The team really doesn't go too far, though, so it's not like they're really building for it. Next match is Ted DiBiase against Tom Jones. DiBiase, of course, here, I believe, is your new, once again, North American champion after basically doing wrong to the Junkyard Dog. Jones, a relative newcomer, rolls DiBiase up rather quickly, gets a quick pop from the crowd, and arm drag by DiBiase. He, basically is not full blown heel yet, but that does come in the weeks and months to come. We see a couple of arm drags and arm bars by DiBiase. Jones does manage to hold his own pretty well. Sunset flip DiBiase, and DiBiase goes back to the arm. You don't, like I said, you don't see him cheat. You don't see him do underhanded stuff yet. So they're slow burning the need for the turn, but at the same time, certainly giving the impression that he's willing to cut a corner or two here and there. Jones actually gets more in the match than I expected, and he comes back to working the arm of DiBiase relatively consistently, and back elbow by DiBiase with a short cutoff. Nothing too terribly major, but at the same time, it's a sign that it's kind of there. Interesting, the hard shot by Jones. Interesting that DiBiase's having this much trouble, though, being the, once again, crowned North American champion. Not necessarily a fan of DiBiase looking weak against a guy who's been here a few times. He does use the loaded glove deal again and manages to get a victory here. So, that will move us forward. He also does manage to win with a pile driver, which is more of a heel-ish type move. We move on to Bob, Roop, and Junkyard Dog. Roop still a heel in the area, but maybe less of one, or a less lethal one after losing the championship. Also, his calling out DiBiase could make some people feel sympathetic, except he's in there with the top babyface in the Dog, so he's not going to get the level of sympathy that he might in other circumstances. In any event, we see the Junkyard Dog going pretty well to town pretty early, and lots of a bit of a chase scene, as the dog is uninterested with the stalling of his opponent, and we kind of see uh, some backward motion, hip tosses by the dog, headbutts, and the like. Dog is dominant throughout. Dog tries to, and successfully does, block a hip toss. Among other things, Irish whip by the dog in a shot to the midsection. Dog is able to handle himself quite well, manages the power slam, gets a victory here. We move on to the Mississippi Championship. The Grappler and Mr. Olympia are your combatants in that championship match. Obviously, the Grappler is Len Denton. We've talked about that before. Not exactly, a standout match here, but at the same time, the two masked combatants do manage to, give each other some ride time and go a little crazy, as it were. Side headlock by Olympia. Olympia, obviously, I would say at least top three baby faces in the territory for the time being, comes over with a drop kick and manages to be pretty aggressive, assertive, gets some ride time with a shoulder tackle, and holds the head of his opponent pretty well. The Grappler manages to duck down before taking a few cheap shots and manages to take back over for a minute. Olympia out the back door in a hurry, and several near falls later, a more frustrated than before Grappler is beating down on his opponent. Drop of the knee, and tries to use the ring ropes to get an advantage. A bear hug by the Grappler, and things are not going the way he intends. Anyhow, several minutes of the bear hug not going the way he intends, and we see a couple of shots by the Mr. Olympia finally breaks the hold, and again, shots right in between the eyes of the opponent, and there we go. Actually, at one point, the Grappler tries to give a try at taking the mask off of Olympia. Doesn't get very far, but at least he tries. And we see a drop kick under the chin by Olympia of his opponent. And Olympia misses a second rope crossbody. And we see the Grappler try to use the loaded boot gimmick, but gets spun around into a sleeper hold and a run off into the buckle, roll up 1, 2, and 3 by the referee. And we have still the same Mississippi champion as we close this particular match here. We move on to Ernie Ladd and Killer Khan. Of course, that is a match that Ladd had asked for in the weeks leading up to this, and as is to be imagined and expected, Ladd kind of takes a bit of a controlling role, snapmares and takeovers and the like. Khan comes back with a more brawling style, not to be outdone, and the match breaks down into a clash of styles for the next several minutes. When it comes to power, Khan is a little bit behind Ladd. Ladd has a little bit of size on him. Of course, Skandar Akbar being a deciding factor on the outside of the ring. The match breaks down into a bit of a brawl, and Ernie Ladd spends a good bit of time on the mat selling and getting beaten up, for lack of better terminology. Choke out by Ladd, and he is anything but happy about that. And then we go to, the match kind of breaking down into being even slower. I don't think Ladd could really go at this point the same way he used to be able to, but suffice to say, the match is pleasing to the fans because of who's in it, but maybe not the best of situations. A chair is introduced by Skandar Akbar and actually is placed in the corner, sent to the back of Khan. Khan, though, picks up the chair because Ernie Ladd he grabs Skandor Akbar, and Khan manages to um, hit Ernie Ladd over the back with the chair while the referee is outside of the ring, having been hit a moment or two before in the match, and then hits a thrust kick and gives him the top rope knee drop for the victory for Khan. And Khan continues to roll on and be a pretty major force in the area. We go to Rick Harris versus Bug Robley next. Not really a match that anybody needs to see. Again, Robley is a guy who I don't really understand the draw of. He might have been good as a booker. Not, I mean, he looks like he belongs in a bar as far as a wrestler goes. I don't really see anything in him, although probably leading a guy like Harris through. Uh, he they work the leg for a little bit, and certainly Harris being a bit of a rookie, getting his leg worked over for the next several minutes. Nothing wrong with it. Match is perfectly fine, but certainly not anything that anybody needs to go out of their way to see or write home about. Harris makes his way back to his feet, albeit a bit awkwardly, and works over the arm, including a leg drop that looks like it's somewhat painful, and is sold by Harris, who had his leg worked over previously. The armbar continues for Harris, and Robley finally makes his way out of the maneuver before coming back to a bit of a brawling scenario with about 4 minutes left in the program. We see a spinning neck breaker and a 1-2 count quickly, and ultimately Harris hits his hangman's submission hold and actually gets a victory here. We see Duggan, which I believe is a clip from Mid-South, or a clip from Houston, because the ring area looks different, and it looks like a Houston lighting. Hacksaw Jim Duggan versus Frank Monty. Literally, they have less than 4 minutes of TV time left when they go to the match. Duggan, again, basically a hired gun, employed by Akbar, and they continue to show him as a power guy. He manages to march around and hit a shoulder breaker on Monty for a near fall pretty quickly, and basically they're trying to get Duggan over as a major force in Mid-South using footage from other places, and literally Duggan doesn't even need more than a minute or two to get the advantage for himself in this way. He cranks on a chin lock, and pretty well could have gotten a submission if he stayed with it if he wanted to, and drives the knee into the spine of his opponent pretty consistently and effectively, as we see him duck some shots. Frank Monty comes back at him a little bit, and actually bails him out of the corner, but certainly not something that Duggan is really affected by in the long term. We then see Monty with a whip into the corner. Duggan gets a knee up, kind of lazily actually, and manages to whip his man into the other corner, catches him, and literally hits a running power slam into the corner, almost Oklahoma Stampede style, twice, opposite corners, and then slams him. And we have backbreakers, and we have a win for Duggan as we close the program. We'll be back with more right after this.